There we go.
There's
I got it.
there's a few of you that came in through Shelby's link. So
Mm-hmm.
you're listed all as Shelby Chandler. If you can change your name to your own, um, it happens whenever we share links that way. So
Mm-hmm.
if you can just change your
Your
name to
name.
your own, that would be great. But thank you all for joining us.
Yes, we are
You too, Heidi.
excited as we are celebrating. Um, got a couple more coming in. Um, all right. So for those of you who've just joined us, we're just getting ready to start. And what we know is that some of you received a link from Shelby, and so you're showing up as Shelby. So please go ahead and change your name so that we'll be able to know when you put something in the chat and not think it's Shelby, or when I call on someone that it won't be Shelby. um, all right. So again, we thank you for being here. Good evening again. Happy Black History Month as we celebrate the gifts and the greatness of what Black people have offered in their being and in their offerings to this country and to the world at large. And so this month we are celebrating Black history through looking at through a lens of art as resistance. I am Sharletta Green. I will be their moderator for tonight. I am a graduate assistant in the Center for Global Partnerships and Learning, and PhD candidate. Yay, feels good to say that. And so I am excited to welcome you tonight and to be with our esteemed panelists who are students. And we have also another doctoral candidate with us tonight. And they will introduce themselves in a few minutes. So let me tell you a little bit about our center. So Dr. Gabriela Miramontes, we just affectionately call her Dr. Gabby, is the center director. She is our leader, and a professor here at Pepperdine. She and Dr. Brame keep the fearless other part of us, the students. And so we have another one of our graduate assistants, Sue Ellen Schneider de Maria, is here as well. We all work together, and we do cultural events each month to celebrate the various cultures that make us who we are in this country. And then we have certificate programs where you can learn and grow. One of the newest ones we have is diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. And so you can check all of those out on our Sakai site or go to the website and look for the center link, and you'll be able to find that information as well. We also have a podcast called Elevating Voices, and we are dedicated to elevating the voices of all people so that we can celebrate our gifts and what we bring to the table, and how we move and have our being as human beings in this space. And so we're excited tonight that you are with us. And so as we get started, we will start with our colleague, Celeste, and she will introduce herself, and the panel will introduce themselves, and then we will begin a discussion around some pretty in-depth questions. Yes, Dr. Gabby, Sharletta questions around art as resistance as Black history.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Celeste Heron Alexander. Just a quick background of me. I have been in education K through 12 for about 25 years. You name it, I've done it at the school site or district office, and I am currently a county office administrator connected to California Department of Education, and I travel throughout the state supporting districts in improving their inclusionary practices at their school sites for all students on campuses.
All right, next.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Acadius Ashby. I am currently in the EDOL program, first year student. I am an educator. I work in the K through 12 system. I'm currently teaching high school. I've taught elementary and middle school as well. I am also the vice president of the NAACP in my local chapter where I live. I've worked on national campaigns with the ACLU, SoCal, the NAACP, on social action justice campaigns such as workplace discrimination. And I'm just extremely happy to be here.
All right, thank you. Michelle, will you go next?
Yes, hello everyone. My name is Michelle Watson. I am a marketing manager and small business owner. I also help co-create a student art program that emphasized the Harlem Renaissance and the Black Arts Movement. I'm also a member of the NAACP Theater Committee, Beverly Hills, Hollywood. I am a Global Leadership and Change PhD student with GSEP.
Welcome. Okay. Allie.
Good evening, everyone. I am Allie Holness Rowland, also known as Reverend Allie. I am ordained clergy in the AME Church. I am a board certified clinical chaplain. I'm loving hearing all the other stories. I am also the chaplain for the National Board of the Next Gen of the NAACP. I am a mother, a proud mother of 3 little ones, and I work with my local church as well, and I am a student in GSEP's program, Global Leadership and Change.
Yes, all right, Shelby.
Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Shelby Chandler, and I am a full-time first-year PhD student, also studying global leadership and change. A little bit about my background. I serve as a global diversity leader for Google LLC for 5 years after resigning from the company to ignite more change. However, proud to share that many of the programs that I've started at Google, like microaggression manager training, alongside psychological safety for Black women and ensuring other things, is still floating and currently running smoothly at the organization. At this time, I'm working closely with our professors and the university to continue to grow as a global leader and figure out how we can increase cultural intelligence, which can increase psychological safety and decrease microaggressions for minorities, especially Black women. Thank you.
Thank you. And Dr. LaShonda.
I said, oh God. I am Dr. LaShonda. I am, my undergraduate is at HBCU. I graduated from Southern University, Baton Rouge, Louisiana. So I'm a toot my horn there. I am, you heard it right, Dr. LaShonda, and I'm here again working on a second doctorate. I am in chapter 4. My area of research is Black women in leadership roles in higher education. Why? Because I work in higher education. I am someone you love to hate in higher education. I am your senior auditor for the community colleges for the state of California. So I'm not favored, but I do help out. My job is to ensure financial compliance and stability throughout our colleges and maintain our student services programs, and that we have the funding. My goal here is to continue to build pathways for Black women and elevate their Black voices and speak to the leadership challenges that we face as we advance through the pipeline. That's who I am. Authentic leadership. That's me.
All right. Well, thank you to my colleagues for those gifted, brilliant leaders that they are, not that they're becoming, that they are. You know, the credentialing is one thing, but you are who you are and you bring what you bring to the table. And so I'm glad that you are here. Thank you for saying yes to this evening's event. We're going to start by asking some questions. So let me just inform the group that has joined us tonight that we are again looking at art as resistance. And the reason why this became something that was important for us to think about is I was looking at the climate of the culture right now and what's going on. But I also was looking at what I had found in my own research doing my dissertation and the role that the Harlem Renaissance played in shaping and molding a generation of leaders and helping them to change the narrative around what Black life, Black love, Black family, Black joy is and was at that time. And I thought, well, we need to talk about this today, because there's some stuff going on in the streets that I don't know about, y'all. And so let's talk about it. Let's look at this in a different way. And so I have questions, and I emailed the panelists questions, but we are open to being in discussion, and we may not get to all of the questions. We may get sidetracked. So just work with us. And then we will open it up for a time for our guests to engage with us as well. So the first question is multi-layered. How has your celebration of Black history changed over time? And what makes your celebration of who you are and the contributions of Black or African-American people an act of resistance? And whoever wants to jump in, just jump in.
So I'll jump in real quick.
Okay.
So for me, my celebration of Black history has evolved from, I want to say, a mere acknowledgement of past struggles and achievements to a deeper, more, I want to say, personal engagement with the, I want to say, rich tapestry of Black American culture and its global impact. So celebrating Black history is an act of resistance. And that's because it confronts the challenges, the systemic, I want to say, erasure and marginalization of Black contributions to society. It's also an assertion of, I want to say, identity, dignity, and the undeniable impact of Black people on the world. So this celebration right here and throughout is a form of resistance when it uplifts the narratives that have been, I want to say, systematically suppressed, thereby rewriting a more inclusive and an accurate account of history.
Okay, thank you. Who wants to go next? Michelle, I see you.
Sure. Yes. My celebration of Black history really came over time. It came through knowledge, learning about the various aspects and contributions that help shape our culture. Learning about people like Josephine Baker, and who was not only an artist, but she was also an activist of the civil rights movement. So contributions like hers, they motivated and they instilled a sense of pride within me currently to this day.
All right, thank you.
I'll jump in.
All right, Allie, wrap it out.
Dr. LaShondra, I'm right there with you, two-time HBCU grad, Spelman College and Howard, okay? So I think for me, I celebrate Black history all year long. And I think what has really changed about it for me is because I have children now, and I feel a responsibility to ensure that they, just like my mother and my father made sure I knew who I was, that they know how great they are and the greatness that they come from. I feel like it's important to retell the story so that they understand a clear narrative of who they are, so that when they go forward, they have confidence in their futures. And I think that it is an act of resistance to teach my children, as my mother taught me, that African people are responsible for STEAM, that our medical advancements have kept the world going around, that the labor of my people built this country, and that, as my great ancestors have said, we too sing America, because this is our country that we have created and we have literally toiled for. And yet we do have somewhere. We have an origin story that expands beyond just this space. So I think it is so important to me. And I think that's the shift that I have experienced now as an adult, as a mother, helping someone else to go through this experience of understanding who they are and have confidence as they're walking through life.
Thank you.
I wouldn't mind going next.
Yes, okay, yes, thank you.
So I believe how my celebration of Black history has changed. It's changed a lot over time, just because my journey through self-discovery and who it is that I am and where it is that I've come from. And in that journey, me embarking on that journey, I've come to appreciate it for what it is on a much deeper level. Right. Growing up I'm from California, growing up in the school system, public education, I didn't learn much about my people as a whole in the education that I was exposed to. It wasn't until I was able to get a lot older and do a lot of self-reflecting and research on my own, that I discovered who it was that I am, where I came from, the individuals that were that made huge contributions to not only to our world as a whole today. So it was that, and then piggybacking off what Ali was saying, my children, right? I didn't want them to have the same experiences that I had growing up in public school and not being exposed to their history and where they come from. So just making a point to seek knowledge so that I can bestow that on them has made my celebration, my Black History celebration, that much sweeter.
All right.
I can go.
Okay, Shelby.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Was Celeste about to go?
No, go
Oh,
ahead.
okay. For me, the epitome of Black history truly started in my household. I want to say in elementary school. My parents, especially my father, did a really great job of ensuring that we understood who the Black man was and who the white man was. And he made sure that we understood the veil behind it. And I recall being in third grade with my dad just coming home regularly with Malcolm X books, just sitting down talking to me as a little kid, but not in the tone that was not digestible. It was in a tone that was like, this is what happens when you step into these places and you stay yourself. This is what happens when you show up in the world and stay yourself. Oh, and this is what happens when you run into your people who have seen a mirror of themselves and don't like the reflection, so they turn the other way to accept a new one. This is how you move into the world. And so for me, I would say Ali actually sparked the idea for me to share this as a mother, the way that she teaches Black history to her children, her daughters and sons. And that just reminded me of what my father did and has continued to do. I mean, just yesterday, I'm getting a text during class on a Nikki Giovanni, James Baldwin quote, just really trying to refresh my mind. And so it's just so powerful to see that my father really ingrained that within our siblings, and then trying to show us like who Martin Luther King was in the world, but also showing both sides of that coin. So Black history to me and the resistance of that is showing up as all of you, right? Every side of you. I knew he showed me the Malcolm X side before he found a peaceful mind to step into a different side of things. I see Dr. Johnson, yeah, as a recruit in that. And so my father just really stepped in to that on me. And my mother was amazing, if I should say, but she was serving our country a lot in Iraq. So my dad really carried a heavy load as a Black man to instill what Black history means today, which inspires my studies and increase in psychological safety for our minorities. So third grade me is thankful to be here right now.
All right, thank you. And Celeste.
So Black History celebration for me started at birth. My dad is the all-time revolutionary. You know, he is like making sure that you understand who you are, but there's also an expectation of understanding the ground that had been laid before and making sure to respect that ground, to be able to build on it, and the expectation of your own greatness, which pushes the resistance, right? And so Black History Month wasn't just in February. Black History Month was every month, because there was always a point of learning. There was always a point of expansion. There was always a point of uplifting positive narratives and making sure to understand the accomplishments and contributions, and to dispel any kind of misrepresentation that has been put out there, and making sure for myself and my brother and now my nieces to understand their own greatness and building upon that.
Okay, well, thank you. And so as we move to the next question, I will kind of pull all of this together by saying, as I think about this and asking you the question, I need to be able to answer it as well, just so that it's a fair space. In looking and hearing what you're saying, the thing that came to me is the first time we celebrated Black History. I went to Catholic school, y'all, and I grew up in West Virginia. There's like a whole 10 of us, right? And and so here we were, these, you know, there may be 5 Black kids in the class, and most of us were related to each other. And I mean, you know, family, you know, we were together. And I remember this white teacher saying, "We want you all to sing, lift every voice and sing for us." Well, we knew the song because we learned it in church, right? um, but then as I'm listening to you all talk about, you know, just the space of identity and the space of learning your history as an act of resistance, because there's a story that isn't being told about who we are and diminishes our humanity and our greatness, and our contributions. The world as we know it is built on who we are and what we've done from the beginning. You know, we start in the continent, right? And so as you think about art forms, you know, what art form speaks to your soul the loudest? One of the things that I remember is the first time I saw Roots, and the scene where Kunta Kinte's father holds him up and tells him to behold the only thing greater than you, God, right? And how powerful that was, and how the naming process is so important, and how the stripping of our name has been a challenge since we got to this space, and how important it is to understand that image sticks with me always, and reminds me of just how powerful cinema is, in helping us to envision some of the things that we miss out on. So tell me about the art form that speaks loudest to your soul.
I want to jump in because you said something great that I want to build off of. And
Okay.
great as in still navigating that, right? You mentioned that us continuing to change ourselves or change who we are, or just over time. And I want to take that to something powerful to me. It was an interview in 1971 with James Baldwin, 47 years old, interviewing Nikki Giovanni at her 28-year-old self. She's one of my favorite poets, and he's one of my favorite just authors, philanthropists. But anywho, I think it was so important because in the first 10 minutes of that video, and it's on YouTube, if you'd like to check it out, please send me a private message and I'd love to send you the link. What's so awesome about it, and also hurtful, but also insightful in that interview, is the moment that he looks to them and says, you step into the mirror and you see who you are, but you don't accept it. So you turn away to choose someone else, right? And I think what also was important and positive and powerful was when he said, I might not be the proper person to say this, but I'm leaning on your generation. And I took that as my generation. Even though that was in 1971, here we are. A lot of people are asking why I'm not doing certain TikToks or certain things on socials, and why I'm spending my 30 years right now of life going for a degree. And it's because we're not focused. We have to understand that at the end of the day, the problem is the Black man doesn't have the identity. And so if you think that not being Black is cool, if the white man tells you not being Black is cool, you're going to start thinking that. And dating a white woman is cool. That's fine. We love interracial dating, but know who you are. Know who you are. Because if you step into those rooms in those moments that you are experiencing those things, it's almost like elasticity. Just sliding off of you. And so I just wanted to elaborate on that, because so many people are doing things either in hiding or not showing their true Blackness. And I've lost out on a lot of friends, or I should say they've lost out on me, not humbly, because of the identity not being ingrained. And I'm not saying pro-Black everywhere, you better hold your sign up and walk these streets. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is, when you look into that mirror, you better understand that at the end of the day, when the master was with the slave, and what was birthed from the woman was a slave, it was not birthed of a free person, unless the skin was a little bit fairer enough to put you in the house. And so I just want to say, when it comes to those type of dialogues and things, that's what really gets me juiced and also emotional, if I could be honest. It's overwhelming, but it's also a reminder from 1971 to where Reverend Green, you were at, where you shared Roots, to now in this 30-year-old seat. We're still finding our identity, and we're still walking away from that mirror. And I want us to walk closely. So, and that they were not free in that house. You're right,
No,
Allie.
they weren't free. They were not free.
So either way, it was still the fact of, even in the video, it says that though too, on the interview, James Baldwin says, but you still were not free. You're never free, because the master could still make a profit off of his son. So regardless, it never steps into that. So thank you, Michelle and Allie, for your support on that.
Right. I want to piggyback.
Okay.
Really quick, Charlotte, off what Shelby just said. You know what, she's right, because I remember writing my first dissertation and we got to the point, it never started about challenges Black women face in higher education. It really started about my hair. And hair was always a topic. So I wanted to really zero in on why was my hair a topic, because my thing was I had already set up in my mind, when I defend, I'm having cornrows. I don't care what you think. They might be burgundy to the floor. I don't, I'm at that point where I was like, I don't care. And it wasn't until someone on my committee said to me, why are you afraid to tell them who you are? And at that moment, I didn't realize how much trauma had set in from over the years of being told that I needed to look a certain way, have certain type of hair when I go to job interviews. I needed to speak a certain way. And all of a sudden, they give me a book. And the book, I was looking at it on my shelf, but I don't see it, but I just looked it up. And the book is called, Why Am I Afraid to Tell You Who I Am? And when he gave me the book, I'm gonna say he, because my committee member was so awesome, and my committee is still the bomb. They are just who they are. And I looked at it, I said, well, he says, tell them who you are. Stand in your truth. And at that moment, I said, you know what? The veil is gone. There's no more me trying to sit here and speak a language. I'm not going to talk mainstream American English to make it understandable and easy for you. If you want to call it African American language, you can call it what you choose. I grew up in the inner cities of Los Angeles. The schools that we went to were mediocre, so the language is just not there if that's what you're looking for. I don't have a big vocabulary. So I tell you who I am when I step in the room. I am Dr. LaShonda Johnson. I graduated from Crenshaw High School. I graduated from an HBCU. If that is too much for you, the exit door is right there. You're more than welcome to leave. But this is who I am. I am a 2-time doctorate of Pepperdine. That is who I am. And that's not going to change. So Shelby, kudos to you. Thank you for bringing that up. But you made me look up this book, and I'm looking it up, you guys. It's by, I want to say, John Pyle. Why Am I Afraid to Tell You Who I Am? Get it? Because it helped me write my literature review. And I was so nervous about saying certain things because I wasn't sure how it was received. I was even more nervous to know that nobody on my committee looked like me. And so I'm sitting here talking about Black women, the challenges they face, and here's my committee that looks like everything but me. So I didn't know how they would receive it. And then they said, let the data and literature tell the story. And it told the story. And I was comfortable, and I've been forever comfortable ever since then, because I can speak to it, I can back it up, and I have documentation for it. So I'm grateful for them. Even when they ask me questions, I'm grateful.
Yeah, and so I want to make sure that people understand that we asked a question about art form, and what you just heard was about 2 very different art forms that we don't often talk about. Literary art, poetry and literary art, but also spoken word art, right? How we engage with one another, how we tell our story, and how we tell who we are all ways of being in these art forms that aren't necessarily always ones that we think about. So I just want to reiterate that so people aren't lost in the conversation, because we're doctoral students. We'll take you on a roller coaster ride for sure.
I'm gonna jump in if
Yes.
that's okay. So I think following that same pattern, I think for me, it's definitely about the fashions. It is about showing up. I think when I think of Black excellence, I was always taught to go out of the house representing my family, and go out of the house with a sense of pride, and make sure you brush your teeth, make sure you clean your face, make sure your hair is, all of these things, because you're not just representing you, you're representing your family. And so I think of, every time I walk in the room, Shelby, you've heard me say this a million times, I walk in the room like I'm walking with a gang, because my ancestors are walking with me. I'm not by myself. So I'm not just representing myself. And so I think when I think of the art forms, I think it is the fashion, it is the style, it is the hair. Definitely it is the language, it's the language that we understand. We know what it is, so we know what it is when we know it. And I think also for me, it is music. When I hear growing up in DC and also growing up in Baltimore, when I hear Nina Simone's Baltimore, me and my kids were just dancing in the kitchen the other day. We're just going back and forth and jamming. It's all of that for me. And so it is about being able to possess it in my body and expressing it, not just through my words, but also through my body, because I feel it deeply in my soul. When I hear freedom song, my family's Jamaican too. So I'm like, ooh, I feel it. I come from a long line of maroon people, okay? And if you don't know who they are, they were the people in Jamaica that did not accept being enslaved. So that's my spirit, very much so. And on my mother's side, it's no different. She desegregated schools. She worked in the NAACP with Barbara Jordan on the National Board of Directors at 16 years old. So, I mean, those are the spirits that are inside of me. So when I'm walking, that's what I'm feeling. It's like all of me, not just some of me. It's my mind, it's my body, it's my spirit, it's my soul, it's all of that. And I think that's truly what encompasses, the Black experience, is that it's not just one avenue, it's all of these things. So all of those for me.
Okay. If I can go next,
Go for it.
I'm going to piggyback off of Reverend Alley and also make a connection with Dr. Johnson. So my family is also Jamaican, and I have a rich, like West Indian history and background. And so the visual arts was huge in our family, making sure that there was representation around the house, and making sure that I understood who I was and where I came from. And so my thing is, focusing on like cultural paintings, different prints, different sculptures, from not just here in the States, but across the diaspora, making sure that we are represented across, because we're not just here. We're not monolithic. We are very diverse. So kind of leaning into, who am I afraid? Why am I afraid to tell you who I am? For me, I am a couple of things. I'm first generation US citizen. My parents are Jamaican. I grew up in Orange County. And so that whole experience on a daily basis was a lot. And so it was very important for me to, know who I was, having that representation, and making sure not to be afraid of how I talked and how people received me, and understood that, yeah, I grew up in Orange County. That's just where that was my experience. And it's not for me to hide it, because for a very long time, I always wanted to hide that I grew up in Orange County, because I felt like it actually had a stigma, and there was an understanding of, oh, well, she's from there, and so she really doesn't understand the struggle. And that is far from the truth. The other part is the art of business. And I know that may not seem like that business would be part of the arts, but my parents were big proponents on exposing my brother and I, our family, and friends, to other types of art, but also making sure to make the connection to spending the Black dollar and making sure to spend within the community, because that was very important. That was, to be able to connect and to be able to support one another through the process. And so in the 90s, my dad started the Black Pages, the Southern California Black Pages. And I just remember him traveling all over Southern California and then all over California, making sure that the art of business and making that connection with community was important. And then making sure that, each one tell one, and sharing the knowledge. It doesn't help us if we don't share what we know.
I'd like to jump in next.
Mhm.
So the art form that speaks the loudest to me is music, and I didn't even have a choice. So
Mhm.
I grew up in the church. My mother was a choir director. Every Friday I was in church. Every Sunday I was in church, and music just spoke to my soul, right? And then as I was growing up, music spoke to a lot of the culture, right? It influences a lot of what it is that I wore. It influenced what it is, how it was that I talk. It influenced my social groups, right? And as I got older, I developed more of an appreciation for music, not just the music that I was exposed to when I was growing up, but music before I came along, the music that my grandmother was listening to, my grandfather was listening to. So music has the ability, it has that, it's the universal language. You know, it breaks all barriers. It has that ability to change your mood, right? To brighten up your day. When you're feeling sad, it has the ability to bring you up, to lift you up, right? When you're feeling at your lowest point, that music has that beat, right? It speaks to your soul, right? So again, I didn't have a choice. I was kind of thrown into it, and I developed a love for it, and it still continues to this day.
Hey.
And I guess I'll what art form speaks most to me? Well, I'm pretty eclectic.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's self for me, it's self-expression with a statement. That's
Mhm.
what moves me. No matter what the art form is, it could be Josephine Baker, it could be Alvin Ailey, it could be Childish Gambino. This is America.
Mhm.
It's whatever moves me in the moment. And even fashion, Cab Calloway with his Heidi Ho man. I
Yes.
mean, even him doing those zoot suits, that was actually controversial at that time. A
Mhm.
lot of people didn't understand, but it really was. I mean, people had a problem with African Americans wearing zoot suits during the Depression, you know?
Mhm.
So it's anything that makes a statement that I find fascinating, and that moves me. So that's what speaks the loudest.
So, I want to thank you for that. I want to shift the conversation just a little bit, even though you have questions that I've given you. I think I want to move us into a space that allows us to think about the way in which art as resistance informs not only our passions, but also our research, but from this caveat. So if you've been paying close attention to what's going on in the world, there's a lot of conversation about what all the stuff that's happening. And we do see art as protest in a variety of different places. We see not just the graffiti, because graffiti is art. So I want to own that. It's, a lot of times it gets a really bad rap, but some of the most amazing artwork you'll see is graffiti art, but it tells a story, right? And so we're getting these stories not just here in the United States, but all the places throughout the diaspora. We see this, whether it's in the dances or the stances that people are taking on, like, okay, you can't treat us like this, right? um, um, or the music. And this is kind of where I want us to kind of talk a little bit. Number one, as scholars, or number two, as people who are raising children, who are invested in young people's lives, whether we have nieces or nephews or people that we care about. Much of the industry around music has been hijacked and misused when it comes to who we are. So we know that the East Coast, West Coast thing wasn't a real reality um, until white owners got involved in it and it became a violent thing, right? It didn't start out that way. Hip hop didn't start out as something that was derogatory. It started out by telling the story about what it meant to live in the neighborhood and what it was like to be challenged in living in a space where you were not seen, but also celebrating some of the things that were just amazing about the uniqueness of being Black and in the context, right? And now we have some stuff that I cannot call music, y'all. I'm sorry. Just because it's got a beat and you can dance to it, don't make it music. And so maybe that's dating me a little bit, But as we think about this as leaders and scholars, what stands out to you today around this methodology of using art as resistance in light of the fact that much of the story still gets hijacked by groups of people that don't understand who we are, nor are they invested in understanding who we are. They often just want to profit off us making things sexy. Let's own it. We are the ones that drive the culture. And so our music is purchased at astronomical rates. But let's face it, disrespecting women is also a disrespect of who you are as a man, because it says a whole lot about your mentality. It says a whole lot about how you see yourself, but more importantly, how you see the world around you. And that's not okay. So as you think about this from a methodological perspective, yeah, we're gonna do some research stuff here, y'all. What are your thoughts on let's talk about music first as an art form, and the way in which it has the power to shift the atmosphere for good, but it also has the power to be used in a negative way that harms us.
I can lean in here
Okay.
to get us started. I think you said something so powerful that answered the question, is where the music that they're making is a reflection that there's an identity crisis that our world is going through at this time. Globally, we are experiencing an identity gap. And speaking with Reverend Alley on previous things, multiple times, even her bringing that to me of what we've spoken about is so much deeper than the human. At this point, you're seeing people who are going through cycles of continual patterns that seem to just validate who they are. When you come from a certain background and you come from a certain environment, and you come from a certain hand being told that this is the way you go and it doesn't veer to the other, you start to believe that's the only way up, right? I was talking to a close girlfriend of mine, and I was just like, man, it's so inspiring to see so many convicted felons out here in LA really getting to it, like really flipping it, really either in the studio or making something shake. I was like, man, I know some felons. I just got off a jail call with somebody, and I'm just like, I hope they get it right this time. And I remember her telling me, that's not really fair to say or to compare, because the situation in LA is different. They can see different. They can see felons flip it and get it out the mud and make something shake in LA. So now their eyes are up. At Indiana, all they saw was reoffender, 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 right? And so I listen to this music, not all of it and not in every facet. However, I'm able to see immediately we're dealing with an identity crisis. And I would call out, hopefully she doesn't mind it, Reverend Alley to hop on and talk about how that correlates to a lack of anchor in Christ and who you are and who you've been called to be just in general in this world, right? And what that looks like. And so, Reverend Green, I hope that kind of answered some of the question a little bit, but it's an identity crisis. I truly believe that it's deeper than just bounce it, shake it, sexy red, go crazy. It's deeper than that. That's all you know. That's their mother. That's their parents. Sorry, okay, I don't play about her though. I do like her, you know what I'm saying? But focus, the mythology. What's important here? So yeah, I say that to say though, it's when you come from stuff like that and you've made it out. You're now a doctoral student at a top 50 university, but your FaceTime calls are still on jail calls, but your money is still being sent on JPay, but you're still asking your sister to borrow food stamps. Let me give you 50 on that so I can get 100. If you feel me, say what's up. That's deep. And so on that, my mindset, my mindset, my heart is still there with my people. My body is with you at this university. And so in those moments, it's deeper for me because it's like, wow, okay, it's not just them sitting down talking about bouncing, shaking. No, that's really all you see. Have you been to Indiana yet? You want to go? We could take a trip. It's crazy at home right now. And so just thinking of that, I wanted to share that lens from my perspective of someone who doesn't code switch. I don't know how to.
No, I mean, I think that you're right, and I think that a part of the challenge for us is just acknowledging how interconnected we really are. You know, what impacts, I think Martin Luther King said, what impacts one of us impacts all of us. And so I work for a federally qualified health clinic, and I work in the largest men's shelter in the Southeast. And I also work with a women's shelter as well. And my clinical sites are housed in both of these spaces. I work with a recuperative care site at the men's site. I just left them today. And in working with them, when you walk in from the outside, what you see, like you literally see people living outside. You see people in their urine, in their feces. Like this is the reality. I work in what used to be a jail. So some of my clients that are coming through here trying to recuperate themselves have literally been in this same jail years before, prior to it becoming what it is now. The only difference in our recuperative care space now is that there are no bars. The toilets are still there. The bunk beds are still there. The tables are still, those metal tables that are on the floor. And yet, this is a space where we're supposed to restore them, to humanity. And so I think that the reality is that everyone is not in the same space. We have not all arrived. And I think sometimes we forget that. And so while some of us, yes, I get to come home and be comfortable and enjoy my family, but I'm reminding that one of my clients said, and so Lisa, like you, I grew up in private schools as one of, like you, Reverend Sharletta, as one or two. Spelman was like oh my gosh, like wait, what? ADW, African diaspora in the world? We talk what? So I think for me, coming through these different types of environments and now finding myself in this environment, I've never seen it like this before. And even watching my colleagues all around me. So my classmates know that I teach on positive psychology. That is my framework. That's my theoretical framework. And I teach hope theory almost every day to my clients because I truly believe that if you can't see it, right, you'll never believe it. And so many of them cannot see it. They're looking down. They can't even realize that there's up. And so I think when we look at the music, because I'm in Atlanta, so I think when we look at the music, everybody here is a rapper. Everybody's, this, I don't even want to name B's and H's or W's, however you say it, but it's all of those things. And so I think the reality is that this is their truth. They're out here trapping, they're selling waters on the corner. So part of me feels like, yeah, it is negative to hear every day. And yeah, it's negative. Me and my husband get into it all the time because he's from here. So, this is his language. And so but for me, I'm like, do we have to hear that today? I don't want to hear Gucci every day. I don't want to hear, I've been trapping out the bando. I don't want to hear that every day. And it's their reality. So it's very much so when I drive down Southwest Atlanta, I see traps. I see trap houses everywhere I go. So while I don't want to hear it, I also had to make myself, as a minister, right? As someone who cares, as a human being, as someone who has compassion and concern for humanity, I have to acknowledge and take a minute to step back and say, wait a minute, my brothers and sisters are seeing this every day. Their mother was, some of them had parents who were addicted to drugs, who were written off by society. And now because opioid addiction has impacted white folks now, oh, it's addiction as an issue, it's an illness, let's give money to it. Well, what about all the Black people who have been written out of society and forgotten and left on the street because they were on crack? My entire city in DC shifted because of that. And so I think when we look at it and we look at gentrification and how it's impacted our communities and the reality, how we have never been restored, it's just like legalized marijuana. How many Black men are sitting in jail right now and Black women because they had a little piece on them, a roach, and now they're forgotten about. And who has the majority of the contracts? White folks. So, for me, this is the reality. I don't like it, but also these are my brothers and my sisters, and I have to figure out how to speak to them because guess what? They're stuck. And I don't want them to be stuck because that's an entire generation that will be lost if they stay stuck. So for me, I see it. And also, how can I support you through this space so that you can come to a different space so that you can see up? Not that you'll shift, not that your music is going to sound different, not that it's going to have less B's in it, not that it's going to have less H's, but so that you can see beyond what it is that you're stuck in right now, so that you know that while these bees might be the thing, but you'll also say, I can also do this. I'm capable. I am a king, and really mean it. So I think that the music is challenging, and I don't think it's just dating yourself, but I think it is challenging. And to me, it's their story still. Yes, white producers and executives are monopolizing on their stories, and it's still a part of their stories, but it doesn't have to be the entire story. And so that's what I think, I struggle with today.
I just want to kind of piggyback on what Ali said. One thing Elmo said and asked the question, Elmo asked the question, how is everybody? Are you okay? Coming off this pandemic, we found out people are not okay. You are what you consume. And we got to do a better job about getting out good content when it comes to the arts, particularly in pop culture, because it's hard for me to find, without going to Fred Hammond, and I love me some Fred Hammond, like without me going to gospel music or listening to jazz, it's hard for me to find content that I find acceptable. And so I do think that that's something that we as a people need to do better with. But I will say, as a marketing person, as long as people want that content, they're going to continue to produce it. So we have to start the change within. We're going to have to change, and I hope that we're able to do so. So yeah, Elmo, he was a good positive psychologist.
Yes.
It was an
Yes.
eye opener.
I want to drop this in as LaShonda gets ready to talk. Reverend Ali said something that I think we need to make a distinction in. So there's a difference between understanding being part of a narrative and getting caught in an episode. And so many people get caught in the episode and think that's the full narrative. And so I want us to kind of keep that in mind as we're talking about a younger generation. Many of them are not connected to a bigger narrative. Many of them do not understand that their story doesn't start in the hulls of slave ships. Many of them do not know the contributions that they've made, or even understand the gift of beats and rhythms and rhymes that has communicated our story and our freedom, and continues to do that because they're caught in an episode. And they think the episode is all that their life is about. This is what's happening right now. And I can't see anything back here. I haven't been connected to my ancestors, and I can't see anything beyond where I am right now. All I know is right here. And I'm going to keep spinning in this episode until somebody tells me that I can do something different. So I just wanted to make sure that we kind of put that in a context that helps us to kind of have this conversation. I know that we're reaching the hour mark, but this was slated for 90 minutes. So I know if people need to go, feel free to go ahead and jump off. I want to honor the rest of the time with our guest. And so if you want to stay, please stay. And then we're going to have some time to join in the conversation. So I want Dr. LaShonda to go next. And then I know that Katie had looked like he had something to say. So I want to make sure that we have that as well.
Okay, so Reverend Ali she just nailed it. Here's the deal. Who's going to help them change the narrative? Let's be honest. When we say, okay, we say, well, they have nothing to look at. No one, they don't understand the history. They don't understand the future. They only understand right now that episode. Who in there is changing that narrative for them? Who is truly speaking to that? Who looks like us in these rooms that are speaking to that content? Let me tell you something. I listen to hip hop, and I listen to it a lot. And I will, honestly, I'll probably go in there and get in my workout and listen to City Girls all day long. Let's be clear. I am going to jam some City Girls. I love Glorilla and all of that. I listen. Here's the challenge. When I see them, and me speaking about and doing research on Black women, I have a friend that is an entertainment attorney. The first thing I said to her is, where are the professional development classes for these women when they enter into the industry? She says, you know what, LaShonda, we had those. But when COVID hit, we started cutting the budget. That's the first area to go. My question is, in that space, who was speaking to the women that look like me, that comes from the ghettos of the city, of their cities, and the barriers of their cities? If they don't understand who they are, goes back to what Shelby says. You got to know who you are, because if not, when you get there, you're going to sell yourself. And if I'm coming from a trap house, y'all, and it's roaches running across my floor, and you don't understand what it feel like to get that collect call from that jail because you got to go send that money, and somebody come at you with this deal for you to make 100,000, because that's a lot for somebody who has nothing. They're going to sign it. They're going to do it. And that's where we, all of us on this page, come into the equation. How do we change it? So that's why it's important for me to stand there and tell you I'm a Crenshaw High graduate from the inner cities of Los Angeles. If you're looking for me, April 29th, 1992, I was at the riot. I was 18 years old. If you're asking me where I was there. And if you would have asked me 10 years ago, would I be Dr. Johnson, I probably would have told you no. But if you ask me that conversation now, and we step into the room, it's a different conversation. And so I stand in certain spaces so I can show you what it looks like when you get uncomfortable, when you sit in spaces and you desire, but if there's nobody there giving you that bait to say, come on, then you're not going to leave. So yes, it's important for me to go put on my Jordans and go put on my hoodie and go out there and get in the mix of everything. It's important that I'm at the Pop Warner football games. I'm turning up at the spaces. I learned the languages. When my niece texts me the little acronyms for, you know, the little quick chats, I learn them. What is that? What does that mean? You know, I need to talk to them. I want to communicate. I want to be able for them to understand, you know what, that's Shonda. That ain't Dr. Johnson. You can go talk to her. That is important, whether it be boy or girl, woman or man. I want to be in that space. So I put myself there. No, I didn't remove myself. I like when the students tell me when I'm in higher education, I'm on campus. Hey, Dr. Johnson, I like the burgundy cornrows. You like my hair? Yes. I like that. I like that when I enter into the special programs and I talk to them and listen to the students that are in a homeless program at my community colleges say to me, I think I want a doctorate. I said, let's do it. Let's do it. It can be done. But who's in the room? That's the question. We can talk about music all day, Sharletta, talk about what's happening in that space and what's coming up. Who's in there saying no? Somebody is going, no, put that out. Let that drop. It drops, it blows up. And now everybody's upset because we're called, what Reverend Ali said, B's and H's, and we learning how to do PPP loans, and we running bricks, and we learning it. And they all talking about it. Then it goes back to the marijuana industry. We all locked up. And when you get out, you can't even get a permit or a contract or any citation, even working one. So my son, that's 23 years old, gets a master's in therapeutic cannabis from the University of Maryland. I said, your job is to penetrate the policy floor. That's your job. You change the narrative. You change it, because we can't get in those spaces. So if no one's there speaking and everybody's at the turn up and at the club and we buying bottles, who's speaking to them? We got to find that out first. And who's in the room? Who else is in that room at Sony, at Arista Records, and all these other Interscopes, big name companies? Who is in the room that looks like us that's saying, no, we're not putting that out? We're not saying that because that's generating dollars and money talk, and that ain't happening. Sorry.
Yeah, somebody put in the chat, representation matters. Yeah, representation does matter, but just because you're represented don't mean that they're gonna say what they need to say. So let's keep that real. Sometimes there are a lot of us sitting in the room that never say anything. That never say anything. And so I don't just need a seat at the table, I need a voice at the table as well. And I need a voice that can run counter to the voices that are not honoring our humanity at a level that's important. And so it's not just about representation, it's good representation. Acadius, you look like you had something going on there, so I want to make sure I honor that.
Yes, the wheels were turning a little bit. I just kind of wanted to note that, like, when we're talking about this music and its impact on our communities and its impact on our young people, I'm boots to the ground. I'm in a high school classroom every single day, so I see the effects of what this music does to our babies and surrounding communities as well. And what I want to know, and well, what I kind of want to put out there is most of them don't understand that a lot of this art that is being called art right now is very performative, right? They don't understand that it's not real, that the things that these individuals are talking about and speaking about is not real. So they need individuals that are going to redirect them when they're listening to an individual like Future rapping about Molly Percocet. When Future is came out and said in an interview that he actually does not use those drugs. But then you have individuals, teenagers that are dissecting that, and they're saying that to themselves that, yes, it is cool for me to use these drugs because Future does it, not knowing that he's not even an individual that does that participates in that type of behavior. So it does take individuals to redirect them, because we all know how impressionable children can be, right? We all know that with their thought process, we were all young and dumb at a time, right? So we do need those individuals with boots on the ground to redirect them when that music is out there, to let them know that, hey, this is not real. These individuals are performing for you, right? This is not, you need to be able to siphon through what it is that they're saying. And also, like, individuals like, I'd say, like Common, right, who raps about things of real issues, those aren't propped up like these other individuals, the Futures, these other individuals. So,
and it's like,
go ahead.
It just sucks because it's a Zoom call. It's like she's speaking. It's like speaking. I have literally not listened to one thing. I've heard her talk like 3 times, but like, I guess there was a fight with the King Cast cheerleader, so my players were in my car screaming about that. This is my homegirl. I can't hear.
I'm not sure who is speaking at this particular point. But you want to finish, Acadius?
Well, I pretty much wrapped up. That's
Okay.
fine.
Thank you. Celeste, do you have anything to add to this?
So this new music, I don't understand it. Let's just be real. I don't understand it. I'm not trying to understand it. It's confusing to me. If I got to look up lyrics to understand what you're saying, it's too much. It's just too much. But I understand about making that shift to be able to support young people in understanding the surface of what's going on with the music. So for me, I listen to a lot of reggae. I think Ali had put in Buju, and Buju is like huge in Jamaica. But on Sundays after church, all we heard was Bob Marley. My dad would start with Redemption Song. Like, that was powerful. Emancipate yourself from mental slavery. That's huge. And so it's just really important, like, trying to understand and dissect some of this new music to be able to connect. And I get what you're saying, Acadius, and but I just can't. Like, it's a struggle for me. The only thing that I can do is show up in my most authentic self to be able to provide support, to pay it forward for what I received, and see things in others, young people, to support them in their goals and uplift them. I just, I can't even lean into the music. I just
Yeah.
And I grew up in the, like in the middle of the hip hop era, and I was in New York during like when hip hop was just like going crazy, and like this stuff when it was rap. When it was rap. Now it's hip hop, and so I cannot make the connection and I don't understand it. And they call it music, but I'm just gonna leave it at that.
Okay, I'm gonna ask one more question and then we're gonna open it up to the floor of our guests that are with us. I see Shelby's hand up, so go ahead, Shelby, and then I'll ask the last question.
Oh, okay. I wanted to speak on the current question that you had, well, the dialogue we were having just now. My angle might just be different, just a light bit, because Jeezy, the recession 2008 and the inspiration 2006 did what it needed to do in my daddy's car. DMX did what it had to do in my daddy's car when he picked me up from school, on top of those educational conversations, certain things like that. And so for me, I now switched the narrative to say, like, Katie just made a great point about being on the ground with your boots on the ground, but nobody's talking about what happens when your boots is on the ground and you're actually trying, and then the white man comes to try to deter your thinking to blend in more like him, so you no longer actually can be on the ground how you like to be on the ground, because now your paycheck is questionable. And so is it on the ground, or are we getting paid? Are the food eating? Are the kids eating? Or are we gonna make sure that we on the ground? And if you cut like me, we not eating, we on the ground making sure that people get it. But I want to let you know, everybody's not raised like that. So I'm hearing a lot of on the ground. I'm hearing a lot of how this music's not it, just different things. And I agree on all platforms, everybody's own personal opinions. But I think it's important to know that one of my favorite rappers, Babyface Ray, made it very clear when he said the route's a little longer when you out here living honest. And I'll say that again, the route is longer when you're living honest. And so we have a lot of people of color who are on the ground, not meeting these kids truly where they are, but they probably are trying to. And then next thing you know, it switches. I can even take it to corporate, move it away from Acadia, so it doesn't seem like I'm only in the educational sector. Let's go to corporate. Let's go to tech. Let's go to Google, where I just came from. Let's be intentional in those spaces and talk about how many Black women leaders that I looked to that I really wanted to hold me up. And once I got in a position and they heard the way that my voice is not quiver, but that lineup is very straight, they couldn't understand what was going on here. They lost their minds. And that's what I'm saying when I'm talking about you have your boots on the ground. And so we keep saying, who is doing it? There are some people out there that are trying, but they lose their way because that paycheck starts to get dangled in their face if they don't adjust. And so I just want to let it be known, like, on two different fronts, the boots on the ground folks, like, yes, that's important. But I know a lot of people who are saying they have their boots on the ground who are code switching. That does not count. We can talk offline if you'd like to speak with me. I'll drop my email. Secondly, the music, I just want to say that on that. Sorry, Sharletta, I hear you trying to transition.
No, you're fine. So I wanna pull this all together, because whether anybody has gotten it, there's been a method to the madness around thinking about art as resistance, and the way in which using art forms resist a narrative about who we are allows us to talk about being present and being here. But also how sometimes those art forms can get hijacked when we are not the owners of the industry and we are not directing the path through which those things go. And so I want to own that. I want to own that as we've had this conversation tonight, we're coming at it from a space of being scholars and practitioners in our own fields. And you've got people in education, you've got people in music, you've got people in industry, you've got a couple of us that have been in churches and those kinds of things. And what we all know is there are a variety of different languages that are being spoken. The question is, are we fluent enough in those languages to speak a word to the people that need to hear it? And as we think about these art forms and as we celebrate our greats, in the music and the, in the dance, even in culinary arts, which we're going to do at the end of the month, what we're seeking to do is to say, hey, not only are we here, not only have we been doing a daggone thing, but we're also aware that sometimes our stuff gets misused and abused. And we still stand in resistance by saying, hey, we're still here. And this art form is still valid, even when it gets hijacked. We still trying to tell you a story. And even if no one else understands that story, what we're hearing, and this is how I want to kind of open it up for everybody to kind of jump in and start asking questions, is about trauma that has been going on for far too long and not talked about. And it's generational trauma. and it's generational trauma that's being capitalized on. The unfortunate reality is that, and please hear me, I'm a sociologist, so please don't take this the wrong way. When I talk about whiteness and white people, I'm not talking about individuals. I'm talking about a concept and a construct and the way in which systems are created and the way in which they multiply and keep people in spaces of oppression. So that's where I'm coming from. So when we think about the realities that the Black body and the Black gifts have been used for entertainment of the dominant culture to our detriment, the question becomes, how then do we stand as art as resistance to challenge that part where our trauma makes them money and causes us even more harm? What are your thoughts?
I have to jump in because I haven't said anything about it. And if I have to say it now. For me, when we're talking about body politics and when we're talking about art as resistance, I have breastfed 3 babies for 2 years. And I promise you, like, it was absolutely fine as I, go in the African American Museum in DC. It was fine when we were doing it for other people. Now, when I'm doing it for myself, they want to create all types of barriers and obstacles, and it's nasty and it's sexualized and it's from me. And so I think for me, if I think about what art as resistance truly is for me, it's literally in my breastfeeding my children. It is giving them the best that I have to offer, what my grandmother gave her children, what my mother gave me. That for me across the board. The music, relevant, sure. The theory's relevant, but for me in practice, giving my children the absolute best from the moment they came out of my womb, making sure that they were skin to skin, mouth to breast. For me, that is art as resistance. So I just needed to make sure I stated that on our panel this evening.
Thank you. Other thoughts? And now this is open up to the other people. So jump in, share, ask questions. I can't see everyone, so if your hand is up, I'm not going to be able to see everybody at the same time. So if there's something that you want to offer up or a question that you want to ask the panelists tonight, just make sure that you unmute yourself and just jump in. I think this has been a rich conversation, and we could like have 3 or 4 panels out of all of this. Again, the hope is that we are highlighting some of the gifts and the amazingness that we bring and the richness we bring, and the importance of knowing that just our existence in the way in which we exist today is a form of resistance. Because we were not brought here. Our ancestors were not brought here to have families, to succeed, or to do the things that we are doing right now. We were brought here and literally lived in perpetual slavery for generations. And so we are the first group of people to have egalitarian relationships. We get married and have families, and the narrative about us is that we don't know how to keep families with a bunch of welfare queens. You've heard the stories, right? You've heard it, and we have policy that was based on that. And the reality is, we have survived and thrived in spite of those narratives and in spite of the actions. And it's in the songs that we sing, and the poetry that we read, and the stories that we tell, and the plays that we experience. It's in the books that we write. It's in the work that we do, and it's in us showing up every single day when sometimes we don't want to. So I know there's got to be some people out here that have some questions for our guest. They have shared richly out of their own experiences, out of their own work, and out of their own lives. So, Dr. Gabby, I see you.
I don't have a question per se. I just want to commend you all, just for bringing your authentic selves into this panel presentation. I've been sitting here listening to y'all. I will say that when LaShonda was speaking, I was getting chills just because I've known LaShonda quite a bit now and seeing how, and hopefully I'll get to see this in all of your journeys. But with LaShonda, um, I've seen that growth, I've seen that journey, and I just, I'm in awe, to be quite honest with you. Hearing how she has stepped into who she has become. Um, and not to say she didn't have a voice before, because she had a voice, but the power that she carries with her, I want to acknowledge that. Um, and each and every one of you, just seeing your evolution. I've been blessed with having to get to know each of you in one way or another. So I'm excited for your own journeys. But just hearing your stories now at the beginning of your journeys in some cases, I'm really excited to see where this goes. So kudos to you all. Thank you for bringing your authentic selves, sharing with us in that space. Uh, 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 Yesterday, someone asked me about my own purpose and what keeps me at Pepperdine. And it's all of you. Just hearing what you all give and how you give of yourselves to elevate everything we do. Like the amazing things that are coming out of GSEP, right? We have to continue to elevate that. We have to continue to show the world your brilliance. And so don't have a question, but I did want to share that. Just how important your message and your thoughts and what you're sharing has been.
Thank you. Curtis, I see your hand up.
I have a question, but first, man, I just want to say thank you to all of you, my dear friends. I'm just always inspired and empowered by each of y'all. Just since the day I met all y'all at the orientation, being in class with some of y'all, I'm constantly reminded of what it looks like to try to be a better self, but also become more aware of myself, and with that, my history and culture. And so I'm gonna drop in the chat kind of my question, but would love to just hear some of your advice for people who are seeking to understand, embrace their history and culture with the kind of pride and strength that each of y'all have modeled in a variety of different contexts for me, but in the context of your history. We'll love to just receive a sense of advice, and for the people who will be listening into this call in the future, I know that y'all have a lot of wisdom to continue to share.
Curtis, thank you for your words and thank you for your question. I will start out and then hand it over to my panelists. You have the divine right to be here. And because you have the divine right to be here, you have every right to be proud of who you've been sent in the world to be, the culture that you represent, the gifts that you bring to the table, and the struggles that you bring to the table, because you can't have greatness without the struggle. And so I think it's important that you not let someone else define that. And that's what we've been saying. We're trying to define who we are without, as Alice Walker and but more importantly, as Toni Morrison said in her interview, without the white gaze, without someone else trying to define that for you. Look at the greatness of who you are and what your people bring to the table, and celebrate that. And just be truthful about it. You know, some people only do one thing well. Do it well. And don't be ashamed of it. You don't have to make up anything. Just be you. I think that's the best gift that we can all bring to the table, no matter what our culture is not to tell fairy tales, because the United States is good for telling fairy tales. And to live in the wrestling of what it means to live with humanity and its struggles, to engage with the diversity that is, and to be proud of what you offer, and in the places where that may not be the best, to give yourself permission to do some self-reflection and interrogation, around what it is that needs to change so that you cannot just be good, but you can be great.
I think for me, my advice for you is to be intentional with that purpose to seek out knowledge, right? And do it. And when you do it unapologetically, right? And also don't let others tell the narrative of who you are for you. All right. So make sure that you are standing on what it is, what it is that you're seeking out, and don't let anyone deter you from your journey, because your personal journey it's going to be influential to develop the development of who you are.
I'm sorry. Oh, what I want to say is one gift that African Americans have given to a lot of people in other cultures is when we had the civil rights movement. We afforded everybody, we did all that hard work and heavy lifting for not just Black people, but everybody to come up and strut their stuff. So I want you to strut, be proud of who you are, embrace who you are. We work hard for that. And we want you to go ahead and just be your best self, unapologetically you. And that's my advice to you. Be unapologetically you. Strut your stuff.
Yeah. Anyone
What can
else?
Why are you afraid to tell them who you are? That saved me. Tell them who you are. Speak it, embrace it, own it. You have no idea who you are actually paying it forward to the next generation, to the next. Tell them. They all said it. Authentic. Authentic is real. It's not fake. You don't have to be anybody. You can step into the room who you are. You hear me talk about my hair. You're going to hear it. My hair is a topic wherever I go. You will see me with braids like Sharletta. You will see me with all different kind of twisties. You're going to see it bright red some days. That is me. Be you. Any room you step in, be you. If that's not the room you're supposed to be in, those not your people. Then that ain't your room. So remember that. Share it. Tell it. Talk about it. Michelle nailed it. We ain't stand up there and fight for nothing. We didn't stand there and fight for nothing. Trust me. Them people, we didn't get long sleeps at night for nothing. Them walks was long. And we're still walking. Yeah. The same stories that they telling in the African American Museum right now. The same videos that you see is happening right now in 2024. The same video. Go sit in that church and listen to Fannie Mae in that makeshift church. The same thing she asked for then, we asking for it now. Do it.
Because my freedom is shackled and chained to your freedom.
Exactly. So go for it.
Yeah.
Curtis, I actually add to just take a holistic approach at the history. Take a holistic approach to see where you came from and look at the ugly parts of it. Sit with it. Let it move you the wrong way. Let it stir your heart in frustration. You have to be angry at what you see for a minute before you can step into the change and the positive mindset and peace to change it. It took me a moment to sit down and understand that my grandmother who picks cotton in Mississippi is still living and still goes home on occasion and goes to that plantation. That's hard to sit with. But it's that history that is so ingrained in me that makes me not be able to step into Google and code switch every day because I'm thinking about what her fingers and those splinters and everything that was on there. That's why I can't switch it up. That's why I can't, because I accepted that, Curtis. And so to answer the question from my part, I would just say, look at the holistic views of who you are, the negative pieces too, the bad pieces too, right? Whatever it is that may be in that, accept that first and feel that pain first. Don't avoid it. The names that they called you, the things that they had for you, the things that they said about your ancestors, things that you and I have sat down and talked about privately, my friend. Look at those things and you embrace them with tears running down your face, and then you can step in to change it and to really holistically step into your place unapologetically, Curtis. Unapologetically, Shelby. So I've embraced it. So.
And I would say to that as well, you know, my husband's father, who is still living, grew up on a sharecropping farm. And that's something, they still live in Georgia, 45 minutes from that. from that farm. And so I think that sometimes, involving the elders, to me, it's important. I talked about ancestors earlier, but there are people that are still living that can tell you the stories of how they made it through their own individual struggles, which are very much so connected to the spiritual grounding that you practice, which allows you to get through whatever it is that you're feeling and that you're going through. And so I think if you choose to take this journey, and this is for everyone, right? If you choose to take this journey, it's just like the Sankofa bird. In order to move forward, we have to look back and see where we came from. And so I think don't feel like you are by yourself. Invoke the presence of those who have survived to be able to have the hands, right, Shelby, that have picked that cotton and the various things that they have, experiences that they have had in life. And so I think just you have it already. Just use the resources that you have. Invoke the elders in your community.
All right, we are at time, my dear brothers and sisters, and this has been an amazing conversation. And I thank you for your honesty, your vulnerability, your power, and your strength for being with us. We are celebrating Black History the rest of the month with events. And so next Friday, please join us. If you're able to join us at the West LA campus, we are doing Art as Resistance Through Dance, and Dr. Hanson is going to be with us doing a Panamanian dance, and we will also do it via Zoom. So make sure that if you can't be there, that you log in. We're glad. I have made it part of my ritual to leave you all with a blessing every time we come together. That's just who I am. I ain't changing that for nobody. I am unapologetically Black. And I am Christian. And yet I know that I am connected and interconnected to everyone, no matter what their religious place is. And so receive this blessing this night. The God who speaks your name, who breathed breath into you and called your ancestors forward, the ancestors whose shoulders that you stand on, the ancestors whose tears are watering the things that you are planting today, the ancestors' voices that are speaking today, reminding you that you are their prayers, that you are their hope, that you are their future, that you are their redemption. This same God that has been speaking throughout time is speaking to you. And as you think about it, this same God speaks your name, speaks your language, calls you forth, gives you purpose, and says, go, my child, because I have work for you to do. And so Asia and Desiree, Ashley and Lizeth, Sue Ellen and Sarah, Kamile and Lex, Usman and Brianna, Olivia and Curtis, Dr. Brahme and Dr. Gabby, Christina and Shanta, Celise, Acadius, Michelle, LaShonda, Shelby, Allie. This God called you by name. And today, you are here because you have purpose for being in this season. We cannot fully live without you fully living. Now go and be and have your being. Be great, be bold, be beautiful, be spiritual, be all that you are intended to be in this moment, because the world needs your gifts. Go forth from this Zoom room in amazing peace, in amazing love, in amazing strength, knowing that the ancestors, and the God who called you by name depend on you doing you well. Be blessed.